Hello, everybody, to Kanban Oceania. Let's call it like this. So we are meetups joined in New Zealand, Melbourne, and Sydney with Daniel from Australia. Welcome, everybody. So any questions, Kanban, anytime, to myself for people in New Zealand, to Dan for people in Australia. We've been doing this together for a while, and it's real fun with quite good topics we had. We have a Kanban New Zealand YouTube channel if you want to check out last recordings or past recordings. Today we have Dimitar here. He is the CEO of the software Kanbanize, and he will show us in a digital tool, which has become more and more important, of course, over the last years, how you can build up OKRs in a feature in Kanbanize and link it to Kanban. We had been here last month with how OKRs work, and that was a pretty good foundational introduction for those who were new to OKRs. Had really good feedback, and Dimitar is going to build up on that and link it back to Kanban. Dan, did you want to say a few words from Australia?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, welcome to everyone from not just here in Australia, but from around the world. It's really international audience, and thank you so much for Dimitar for coming along and showing us this new stuff that you've got in Kanbanize and linking it together with a topic that I think a lot of people are quite interested to hear about nowadays, and a lot of people out there are using the OKR. So it's great to be here, and yeah, thanks again, Dimitar.
Yeah, Dimitar, over to you.
Thank you, Silke, and thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I know we're almost 10 minutes now into it, so let's get started. I will share my screen now. And I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little bit odd. I'm recovering from sickness. So I'm going to talk about Kanban and how it meets OKRs with a subtitle about strategy and execution. So the first thing I wanna say is that they don't teach strategy in schools, unfortunately. Maybe if you do an MBO, you will know more about it. But I'm an engineer. How many of you are actually engineers or have background in engineering? Can you just wave or something? Okay, we have at least a few, and maybe, more people with no cameras switched on. So you know what I'm talking about. And then being an engineer, then a line manager, middle manager, we start this company Kanbanize, and I find myself not knowing anything about strategy and how to manage this company. So I started reading on the subject, and I came on this book, which is called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. And this book talks about the kernel of good strategy. And why am I talking about strategy? It's because it's connected very closely to OKRs. And actually, before I move into that, I just want to mention that I'm not going to cover what OKRs are, how you do it, what's an objective, what's a key result, because I assume that everybody here is aware, maybe due to the previous session. It was very thorough. I watched it, it was great. So I'm not going to focus on that. I'm just going to talk about strategy, OKRs, and Kanban. So about good strategy, bad strategy. This guy, Richard Rumelt, who is the author of this book, created the notion of the kernel of strategy. And he says there are three components that make a good strategy. The first component is the diagnosis. This one here. And the diagnosis is basically the answer to the question, what opportunities we have, what challenges we have. So what's going on here, as you see on the slide. And then we go to guiding policies. Guiding policies are something like what is always true in your company that people and teams can use in order to take decisions autonomously. So instead of having to go micromanage everyone and take all the decisions in the organization, you establish guiding policies so that people can take decisions by themselves. Of course, you have to reiterate those every now and then, but they have to be there. And then the last piece to the good strategy kernel is the set of coherent actions. Coherent, cohesive, no matter how you call it, but the point is that, first of all, there has to be actions, and you'll be surprised how frequently there are no actions attached to a strategy. And second, they have to be coherent, meaning that one part of the company shouldn't do things that contradict what the rest of the company is doing. And that takes a great level of alignment to achieve, especially in large companies. So having these three components is what makes good strategy. But Mr. Rummold, who is a professor at the California University, I think, on strategy, so he knows a lot and he's done a lot of research on that. He says, you know what, good strategy is by far the exception, and bad strategy is by far the norm. He says some 90% of the strategies he's researched are actually bad ones. And he says that the majority of strategic reviews he's done reveal that there are no actions attached to the strategy. So it's only either the goals, or it's only aspirational stuff, or it's only the vision, it's only the mission. He says that CEOs frequently can't really express their strategy in a good way, which is kind of frightening if you ask me. But maybe that's why OKRs are so popular right now, because there really is a problem in the field. And I tried to find some good quotes on strategy to start the presentation with. And actually, I found these. I really want to go through them and read them one by one, although it might be a little bit strange, but I really want to make a point. So the first one by Thomas Edison: vision without execution is hallucination. Without strategy, execution is aimless. Without execution, strategy is useless. Ideas are commodity. Execution of them is not. And you can read the names of the people, all very famous, very successful people. Success doesn't necessarily come from breakthrough innovation, but from flawless execution. Strategy equals execution. All the great ideas and visions in the world are worthless if they cannot be implemented rapidly and efficiently. Even politicians say that. Good business leaders create a vision, articulate the vision, passionately own the vision, and relentlessly drive it to completion. This is Jack Welch, a very, very famous person, former CEO of General Electric. We have a strategic plan. It's called doing things. I don't quite agree to that, but I think it makes a point, so I left it here. So we have all this advice from these amazing people who have achieved it all, and they talk about execution all the time. Ironically, Andy Grove, who was the CEO of Intel, who actually created the OKR framework and taught it to John Doerr, told him, it almost doesn't matter what you know, it's all about execution. So even Andy Grove, the person who actually created the OKR framework, said that. John Doerr speaks about it in various presentations. But then where is the execution in the OKR framework? And this is something that has been occupying my mind for, I don't know, the past 5 years, I guess, because it's great to have the objectives, it's great to have the key results. It's not easy to get there, but once you get there, it's great. And then what? Then you have to actually execute on those. And this is where a huge gap exists, in my opinion. When I think, when Andy Grove created the OKRs, I think they took project management for granted back then. They knew the PMI type of project management, nothing wrong with it, by the way. It works in certain fields. But they took it for granted. I think that's how we run projects around here. So as long as we have the OKRs, we know how to run the projects, let's get it done. But the world has changed a lot, hasn't it? It's become a much, much more complex world that we live in, and the work is more complex, and the projects are more complex. Everything is more complex, and we need a more adaptive system to manage everything, not what we were taught 30 or 40 years ago. And I think that's where we'd start talking about moving from OKRs, objectives and key results, to objectives, key results, and actions. And some people say activities, some people say OKRI, which is objectives, key results, and execution. I don't claim any ownership on these terms. It's just how we call it: objectives, key results, and actions. And I actually go a little bit further and talk about objectives, Kanban, and results. So it's still the same abbreviation, but it's obviously a word, a game of words, or how do you call it? I'm not sure about the term in English, but I think when you merge those two, objectives, key results, and Kanban, there are 4 very interesting synergies. So first one is that Kanban makes it more likely to reach your goals by making the work execution much more efficient. Whoever has been into Kanban and really tried it can confirm that work flows much faster and in a much more predictable way, which of course means that if we plan certain activities for our objectives, there's a higher likelihood that we actually get to our objectives. Second thing is that the OKRs help us to focus more on outcomes versus output. And I don't think Kanban really shines in that regard. Maybe it's just my crippled understanding of it. Maybe it's not. But when I got into Kanban, and many years after that, it was all about, let's visualize what we are doing and not what we want to achieve. Of course, some smart people had figured it out and they visualized what they want to achieve, but it's not that explicit, at least in my opinion, in the Kanban world. So that's why the OKRs provide this nice hat on it. The third thing, when I see huge synergies between the OKRs and Kanban, is the Kanban cadences. I think they very nicely match the OKR framework, because the OKRs are not supposed to be set and then forgotten, right? They have to be reviewed on a regular basis. They have to be updated. Some changes need to be done if you're not going where you want to go. And I think the replenishment meetings, the service delivery meeting, the risk operations and strategy reviews are ideal to review certain OKRs, team OKRs, of course, for the first 2 meetings, and then more strategic ones at the other meetings. But I think it's just such a nice match that I thought it should be mentioned. And the last piece, and maybe there are more, but these are the ones I thought of. The last piece is that the Kanban metrics really help us to get early indicators of whether we're actually going to get done with the work that we believe will help us get to our goals. And if we see that our metrics show us that we will not get there, well, it's a good early indicator. There's no need to wait a certain amount of time to see that we're not going to make it. So with that, I'm going into Kanbanize land now. And I want to talk about how we see the world from the Kanbanize lens. All right. So on the left, I've listed the items that we've talked about so far, the objectives, the key results, and the actions. And on the right, it's our own nomenclature in Kanbanize. And I will be jumping around a little bit with my, actually, if I do it like this, I'll be jumping a little bit. My screen is not that big, so maybe I should get one of those big screens. So what we, instead of objectives, we use things called initiatives. So I'm going to show you a Kanbanize board. This is a Kanbanize board, and I want to show you what the initiative is. So this is an initiative. And what an initiative means for us is basically a larger piece of work that is broken down into smaller pieces of work. So there's one card here, which is the equivalent of the action here. And what happens is that one initiative is broken down into one or more cards. And as these cards move through their own workflow, the initiative also moves through its own workflow. So if I move this card under the first in progress column, we will see that the initiative will move automatically to in progress as well. If I move back, something which I'm not supposed to do in Kanban, of course, especially across sections, then the initiative moves back automatically as well. So let me actually go ahead and delete those because I didn't delete them before. It's part of the demo to do it. And now talk about the middle thing, the key result. So in Kanban, well, in Kanban, there's no definition about initiatives anyway, and no definition about, this is our own definition in Kanbanize. And there's certainly no definition for outcomes. How you manage those, it's not clear. Everybody has to come up with their own thing. And I'm going to show you how we do it. And I will show you 3 different scenarios. The first scenario is how we do OKRs on a team level. The second scenario will be how we do it across a few teams. And then the third scenario would be how we do it across a company. And of course, the examples are very simplistic, but you will get the idea. So we're talking about doing OKRs with a team right now. We have the initiative, we have some actions, and what about the outcomes? What about the key results? Actually, in Kanbanize, we have introduced a thing called outcome. As you can see here, there's a field defined, desired, measurable outcomes. Each initiative in Kanbanize has the option to have outcomes attached to it, and the cards have no such feature because they're supposed to be work. They're supposed to be actions and not something to be achieved. So I have this initiative or objective, which is turn our communication from, oh, okay, to, oh, wow. And I phrased it like this because objectives are supposed to be aspirational and motivational. And I thought it's a nice way to say to a customer support team, which is the assumed context here, let's get our communication to our next level. So we want our customers to go from, oh, okay, to, oh, wow. And this is the objective. This is the high level thing, right? Then how are we going to measure it? Outcomes are for us the key results. Let me put it like here, just so you're not confused with our terminology. But the idea is that we want to increase the customer satisfaction score with 10%. We want to reduce the number of iterations needed to close a ticket by 30%. And we want to improve the resolution time of our tickets with 15%. What are we going to do about it to actually get it done? Well, we will introduce email templates that we know have worked in the past so that we are faster to respond to the client. We will have a best practices guide implemented. We will hire a technical team member who can help us with the technical issues and therefore be faster. And we will train the junior team members so that they uplift their skills and be more useful for our clients. So this is the whole thing. Now I want to show you how you do it in Kanbanize, because I think it's kind of easy. We put a lot of thought into how these things should work and look in Kanbanize. And that's the goal of today's exercise. So I'm going to click here and I'm presented with a screen that allows me to pick custom fields. We have this notion of a custom field in Kanbanize, but you can think of this as a metric. It allows me to pick a field, which is of type number always, which I can attach to an outcome. And because the first thing we want to do is improve customer satisfaction, I will select customer satisfaction. Then I wanted to go from 8.1 to 9. So let's just put 8 as a current value. So we know that we run our surveys over there. It could be fit for purpose. It could be NPS. It could be your own. It doesn't matter for this example. It's just a number. How you come up with this number is not important right now. Then we give it a summary, and we have put a label here, explain why this is important, because we really think that we should stress on why we are doing this, not just get to that number, but why. So where we need customer satisfaction in order to change the world. We need our clients to love us, or whatever. You will figure out a better formulation. The starting value could be different from the current value. It could be any, but right now it's the same. And then you give it a target value, which is 9. You can choose an operator here, which is to have the target value or more, or the target value or less. In this case, it obviously makes sense to have it or more, because we don't want less customer satisfaction. And then you have a field called weight, which we use to calculate the status of the entire objective when we have multiple outcomes attached to it. It's just a number. It doesn't need to be a percentage. So if you have 10,000 here and 20,000 in the other key result, it would mean that the other is 2 times more important than this one. Only the relative sizing matters. So you save that, and it appears on the initiative like that. So you repeat the cycle with the number of iterations to close the ticket. We want to go from 6 to 4. Let's say the current value is already 5. We start with 6, we go to 4. Of course, this time we choose or less, because less is always better. Oops, sorry, I forgot to put the Y. So I will just fake it right now because I don't want to waste your time. And the third one is improve the resolution time. So resolution time, it's 3, starting value 3, current value 2.5 or less again. Yeah, I'm not usually doing it in a hurry. And when you have the outcomes attached to the initiative, you can just update it. And then you see this icon here appearing. And this icon here signals that there is at least one outcome attached to this initiative. If you click it, it's expanded and you can see everything that we've just defined at a glance. These are gray for 2 reasons. First one is that the whole initiative has no timeline attached to it. So you can attach a deadline to this initiative. Let's choose some deadline. And as soon as it enters in progress, these guys should have a color now. Let's see. Yep, they do. The colors of the outcomes are codified, as you can imagine. There's a red color, which indicates you're way behind where you want to be. There's a yellow color, which is a little bit better, still not too good. Then we have this color, which is yellow to green, and this color will be used if you are 70% or above of where you're expected to be right now. We take the timeline of the whole initiative, the objective, and we calculate based on your progress where you're supposed to be. So if you're above 70% of where you're supposed to be, we will color it like this. And if it's a dark green, it means that you're just killing it. We have no timeline or time box for the individual outcomes or key results, but this is something that we're working on right now, and I expect to release very soon. So stay tuned for that. It will be there as well. Not just the whole initiative, but each individual outcome will have a time box attached to it. Right now, I'd like to pause for a few seconds and see if we have any questions in the chat window. If not, I will move forward. If yes,
there was nothing in the chat window, but if anybody has a question, please also feel free to shout out. How to attach to external source.
Hi, Craig. This is not out of the box right now with Kanbanize, although it will be. I will talk about this. I will talk about the next steps towards the end of the webinar, but you can always use any integration to update the custom field associated with the outcome. I missed to mention that, but let's take a look very, very quickly. So this customer satisfaction thing here, it's actually a field in Kanbanize, and its value is currently 8. If you actually take a look on the right, you see the same fields are attached to the cart with the same value. So if I'm changing this value, it's also changing in the outcome. See? And if I'm changing it in the outcome, it's changing in the field as well. So you can hit our API and update those values with from any source you want, and this will automatically update the outcomes as well. And each change, by the way, will be tracked right here. We have a history of the changes, so each change will be tracked here, and you will be able to see how it goes over time, something which I'm going to show in a few minutes. Okay, can we attach to creating Kanbanize? Example, number of outstanding bugs. Excellent question, Andy. This is exactly where we're going with this. We plan on introducing a thing called metrics, which will be calculated automatically. So your example is exactly one of the things we were thinking. How do we allow people to count good things like number of business requests served, number of whatever, and bad things, well, bad things like bugs. So this is where we're going. It will take probably, I don't know, maybe 3 to 6 months together, because it's a beast to do this. I mean, there are tools who only do that for a living, and for us, it will be a feature. So it will take a while, but we're getting there for sure. And not just that, but we also want to allow you to fetch data from external sources. So Salesforce, CRM tools like HubSpot, ERPs, data sources of any sort. We want to get there. It's a long-term vision for the OKR capability in Kanbanize, but we're getting there. The high-level reports is also something on our roadmap. This is brand new stuff, what I'm showing you, and we had to make the mechanics work first. And actually, the current priority for us is adding check-ins for the outcomes. What I talked about, the individual timeline boxes for the outcomes, and then the next high priority thing is dashboarding. So we'll be creating some fancy dashboards to show not just what's going on that board, but across all boards in the account. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, Hassan, for your question. Can the work items be filtered separately by objectives and initiatives? I will show a few things about that. All right. Do they nest? I think that's a question about the OKRs. Sorry, the key results or the outcomes. Is that correct, Andy? Okay, I will move forward anyway, because that's what I'm talking about. Next.
He says chain levels.
Maybe I should pause for a second.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just move on. Sorry.
All right. And when I get to that, it's my next thing on the list. You can chime in again. All right. So this was what we did on a team level. I'm gonna restart a bit the whole board, and I will move to a dashboard in Kanbanize to show you a little bit of a bigger picture of what we also have. Some people are familiar already, but others are not. In Kanbanize, we have two types of workspaces. So one type of workspace contains team boards, what I just showed you right now. And we have one such workspace here called Agile Teams. And we have Team A and Team B, two boards for two separate teams. Then in Kanbanize, you can add what we call management workspaces or management boards. And I have two management boards. One is called coordination and one is called strategy. And I want to drill down into the coordination board and talk about this black ribbon and what's below it. This black ribbon is called linked workflows because it allows you to link workflows from other boards below it. And as you can see, we have the objectives on a high level now. It's a big objective, get our customer-facing processes on the next level. So this is something very big for the company, or at least for a department. And then, I'm sorry. And then we have two workflows from the team boards linked to the current board. So it's like a board of boards. As you can see, this is the same initiative or objective that we were looking at just before on the team board. So it's like a real window into the other board. We only allow you to link initiative type of workflows and not card type of workflows, because we believe that the teams own the cards and the work, and the initiatives is what should be exposed to the other world, to the rest of the world, to the management, to the senior executives, so that not too much of micromanaging is encouraged, but still some level of alignment is achieved. And what we can do here, and I'm now going to open the backlog and move these pre-created initiatives out of it. So what we're doing here, we have this, somehow we got this goal to get our customer-facing processes on the next level. If we open it, we see that what it really means to get our customer-facing process on the next level is to reduce our overall resolution time for any sort of requests from 6 to 3 days. We want to increase training coverage to 100%, and we want to increase customer satisfaction to 8, whatever. So this is the big thing. And then what we can do, and I've already done that, we can link child initiatives that live on the team boards to this big level objective, so that we slice the big goal into something smaller. And this is an essential part of the OKR framework, where teams and the management or management with the senior management, they collaborate on what the objectives should be. So imagine we're sitting here, somebody, let's say Silke is the manager who wants to get this done, an executive level or VP level person, and then they come to me and say, "Hey, Dimitar, we need to get to the next level." And I say, "Okay, I can give you something like amazed customers with quick response times which is backed up by those key results. Is that fine with you? And then we talk about it, and then we settle on something. So I've played this already with myself, and I came up with those. Pay attention to something that sometimes the objectives are aspirational, motivational, and very like abstract or high level. Sometimes it's just something to get done. And that's totally fine, in my opinion. When you have to train people, I don't think it's natural for people to say, make our team super happy and because they need training. Or, I mean, I don't like faking things, so make it natural. But the mix of initiatives having outcomes attached to them, like these two, and initiatives having no outcomes attached to them, I think it's a healthy mix. If we're in one of these extremes, I find that unnatural. But it could be natural for some. I'm just giving you my own perspective on things. So what you can also do very quickly as a manager, you can create a new initiative for team B, let's say, which is also to train people. So you request that from them. As a manager, sometimes you have the right to request things. And as you can see, it's now linked to this parent initiative. Or the other way around, I could be a team leader and I want to, I don't know, do something. And then I can talk with the executives, and then I can link it up to this initiative. So it's not top down, it's not bottom up, it's both. That's what I'm trying to say. So if we take a look at this objective, it has 3 outcomes attached to it. I want to show you what we have for the outcomes, given that there is historical data. So each outcome is being updated, presumably on a regular basis, by changing the value of the field. So each change is recorded, and we run a simple projection of how you're supposed to go if you want to get your target values and how you're actually going. Plus, this orange thing is where you will likely go if you keep the same pace. And this is not some sophisticated analysis. I have to admit, it's what Excel does with a numeric range if you extend it to the right or to the bottom. I think the algorithm is called the least squares algorithm. So if somebody is interested, can check it up. But for non-varying processes, for processes that always go like that, it's very, very successful. For processes with varying trends, it's not that successful. But when we introduce this timing for the individual key results, it will improve significantly, even in that regard. So stay tuned for that as well. Actually, what we're working on right now is here below this chart, you will be able to say, all right, I really want to get from 6 to 3 days, but I want to get to 4 days by this date, and then to 3 days by that date. And then the blue line will be curved accordingly to your expectations. How we draw those things? Well, if you open an objective having outcomes and you go to the menu for any outcome, there's this property called values. So each outcome has those values, and you can enter them manually if you want to. We made that on purpose because we thought, okay, probably 95% of our customer base will start in the middle of something, and they will need the tools to add historical values for the outcomes. Or you can go back in time and put the value as it was at that point in time in the past. And as you can see, I have put some values here. So those values that you put for the key result are those values that we plot right here. And those are the values that we based our projection on. How do we nest objectives, or how do we link hierarchically objectives? It's through this small utility we introduced, which is a filter to show you which initiatives on the board have the same type of outcome. So if I use this filter here, the system will show me all initiatives on the current board and all linked workflows that have resolution time in any of the outcomes. So as you can see, if I expand those, we have resolution time, we have resolution time. And that's how you can see the big picture of how is my current objective, and specifically the resolution time key result, how is it being actually achieved? Is it being achieved? Is there anything going on that's supporting this resolution time decrease that I'm targeting? If this filter was empty like this, it means that we don't do anything about training coverage right now. And if we want to get to it, we should probably do something about it. So this, I think this was the question by Andy before. I'm not sure. Please clarify if you want to, but this is how we recommend you track those things. So I will pause again for a second and see if we have any new questions. So the question by Andrea is, will you have an option to set some kind of visual reminders to update our progress towards key results, at least monthly, weekly? We don't have it now, but it's an interesting idea. And I'm thinking a business rule would be better, actually. So I'll think about this. I'll think about a business rule where you can configure it to say, if my outcomes have not been updated in the past 2 weeks, send me a notification or something like that. And for the folks who have no idea what business rules are in Kanbanize, just very quickly, we have this option to create rules in the system to do something when certain events happen. So for example, what it can do is it can say when a card is moved and the card is moved to whatever position and it contains tag whatever, some sort of tag, then you can do all sorts of things like create new subtask, update it, link it. I mean, a lot of things. I won't go into that right now. It's not the topic of the conversation, but my point was that the outcomes are not yet supported by the business rules engine, but it's a good idea. We'll think about it. Thanks, Andrea. Okay. No more questions. So I will move to the last piece, which is actually going to be real quick, and we can have a Q&A after that. Is how do we do OKRs on the company level or on the strategy level? Well, it's basically the same idea. So I'm now going to open the strategy board, which is linking to the coordination board. So it's like moving one level above. And we see that probably this objective to get our customer-facing processes to the next level was actually created because we wanted to significantly improve the success rate of our major projects. And of course, it's just an example, but imagine you are in a project company, and I was doing this example with industrial companies in mind who always work on projects. And their projects keep failing, they keep losing money, and they drill down and they realize that the support processes and the whole customer-facing area is not performing well, and therefore they have this bigger goal of improving the major projects, but then a nested objective would be to improve those processes. We're not doing it for the sake of doing it, we're doing it because we have a problem to solve with our major projects. And if this was the case, we would just link one to the other And now we know that this objective support this objective, and the whole thing repeats. So you can scale that up as many levels as you want. How you come up with those wordings with the objectives and the key results themselves is a hard conversation. It's a hard exercise. I think there was a great advice in the previous session on OKR not to start at too many levels. I think Ben recommended having company level OKRs and then team level OKRs. I found that tip interesting. I'm not sure it's ideal for all companies, but it's definitely a great starting point. So you may not want to go at each level in the organization and do those kind of things, but at least 2 or 3 levels in the organization will be great, in my opinion. I don't need to repeat the same stuff again manually. You saw it. We have the outcomes here. We have the child objectives. So that's how Kanbanize supports the setting OKRs right now, and working inside Kanbanize on the actual projects you have, or programs or products. So this is how we see both worlds combined. And a few words on the next steps. We already scratched that, but I think it's important to know what's coming up. As I mentioned, we have the outcomes upgraded with their own timelines, let's say. We will work a lot on dashboards, and I invite everyone to contribute to those dashboards if you want to see something specific, or you've seen something that is really cool and you want to see it in Kanbanize. Please find me on LinkedIn or drop a message to our support guys. We welcome feedback. We will work on metrics afterwards, the automatic collection of data points from other systems and from our own system. So a lot of cool stuff is coming up in Kanbanize around OKRs. We are very excited about this topic for the reasons I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. And we hope to make this a collaboration effort, not just a software vendor pushing features out, but real collaboration. So we invite you to send us feedback now, later, whenever. I will now open the floor for questions, please. And not just to myself, but it could be a discussion. Let's talk about it more.
Love your last words, Dimitar. That's why we love Kanbanize. And I remember that post on LinkedIn you once sent with 0 bugs in the backlog.
Yeah, we are very proud about that. We have bugs. Unfortunately, we're not that good of having no issues, but we don't leave them unsolved. Every customer issue is either closed successfully, or it's not an issue for us. Very rarely happens that some people complain about a bug and we say it's not a bug. It's very rare it happens, but we always fix it.
Somebody is not muted. I'm trying to find out who done that.
All right. So do we have any questions, folks?
And also, have all the questions that were in the chat been answered? Otherwise, shout out. Craig.
Hi, I apologize if I missed this, but I'm pretty sure one of the features, I just got off of a 30-hour plane ride, so my brain is fuzzy right now, but you can have multiple initiative boards, right? And you can have sort of a hierarchy. Is that correct? I'm trying to remember. So that in theory, you could have objectives at one level and sort of subdivide them. Am I off base, or?
No, it's exactly, am I still sharing my screen? Can you see my mouse?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is exactly what I talked about when we have a big high level initiative, like this one, all the major projects have to be improved. So you link other initiatives. This one, if you can see this arrow pointing up, if you click on that, it actually takes you to the parent. So you have this initiative being the parent of this initiative. And this initiative has 4 other initiatives, which are its children. So you can create this nested hierarchy of initiatives to really always take the objective one level below and adjust it to the corresponding context for the people who operate at that level. Am I answering the question, Craig?
Yes, sir. I think like for us, we would have, we're trying to get government business. So we'd say one of the top level objectives is to remove the barriers to doing business. And then of that, I would subdivide that. And one of the elements of removing a barrier is achieving all the millions of certifications that the US federal government requires, like ISO and CMMI. And then each of those tracks through a process. So that would be a really nice way for us to track our progress of that. And then it's going to be a whole hierarchy of different things. So this is great. This is perfect for us.
Thanks, Craig. And you may have a comment, not just a question. So please feel free to jump in and tell us if that was good or completely useless. I'm always open to feedback. So please go ahead. How to label aspirational OKRs versus operational must-do? That's a great question, Andy. I'm not sure I have a great answer to that, to be honest, because the aspirational stuff is not my strength personally. But what I can suggest is to have different templates for the different initiatives. So even if we talk about the color, so you can use, let's say, the orange color for your company. It means that this is operational must do. And even if it's operational must do, I would still associate outcomes to it, because very, very rarely a high level initiative cannot have outcomes attached to it. So even if the outcome is true or false, it's still an outcome that you can attach to it. Of course, there will be exceptions where the outcome is just redundant, but most of the times it will not be. So if you have one orange and then one green, it's very easy for you to figure out which one is aspirational and which one is not aspirational. And the sorts of visualizations you can use with stickers, for example, is also something that you can use to enhance the visual appearance of the initiative so that people instantly know which one is aspirational, which one is operational must do. And I would also recommend using the board policies widget here, because if you codify things like that, it's good for people to know, or at least to have a legend, which one is which. So you can put here the orange is operational, green aspirational, and you can actually attach images as well. So people will be able to open that widget and see, okay, this is this, okay, this is that. So this is what I can suggest. Yeah, Craig had the same ideas actually. Cool. All right. Any other comments or questions, guys? No? All right. Then thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Hope it was useful.
Thank you so much, everybody. It was really good having you all here today. If you like to hang in for a bit, I'll stay. If nobody's there, that's fine as well. I think because of Queen's Memorial Day in New Zealand on Monday, in Australia next 2 days, things have changed a little bit. Yeah, of course, everybody likes to in Australia head into their weekends, and New Zealand into their evenings. Last check, no questions, or questions rather, put it in a positive way. Cool. So I will stop the recording, but I will stay here for a bit if people like to catch up.